Hi YouTube, in this video I tried to economically recover silver from silver plated dishes. First, I cut up the dishes into small squares to fit into my beakers. I had about 4 pounds once it was all cut up. I begin to add the pieces to a beaker. The beaker had a couple milliliters of nitric acid in it already. I then add concentrated sulfuric acid to cover the pieces. It reacts with a little nitric acid at the beginning to create some heat. Adding a little more sulfuric acid to finish covering up the metal pieces right now. Placing a round bottom flask over the beaker to help prevent splatters, and adding some water to recondense any nitric acid back into the beaker. I then add 10 milliliters more nitric acid and add a little heat. This is a real time right here, and you can see the silver being removed. I then prep another beaker with some more silver pieces. Here I'm just checking to make sure all the silver has been removed. I then pour over the solution to the new beaker. You can see some silver sulfate on the side of this beaker, but that will be recovered later. Now I had this silver coated fork lying around that I use to stir some of the solution. It will add a little bit of silver to the final results, but it shouldn't be that noticeable. Here I decided to add a few more milliliters of nitric acid just to make sure that I had enough nitric acid free to dissolve all of the silver. I slow the video down here to real time again, and you can see how quickly that silver is being removed. Now, normally I could continue using this solution, but for the purpose of getting a yield, I decide to convert the silver out of the solution. So first I select a couple pieces of copper to convert the silver. Now, in order to drop the silver, I need to dilute the solution. So very slowly, I start adding distilled water to the solution. Now, normally I'm not supposed to add watered acid, which is why I also have a beaker on top to catch any splatter, and also helps redistill the nitric acid back into the solution to convert it. Here's a little later, and you can actually see the silver sulfate on the bottom of this beaker. I then start adding some heat to drive off any of the nitric acid and react it with the copper in there. Now the solution here was still too acidic, preventing the cementation of the silver, so I had to dilute it with some more distilled water. Once it was done reacting, I tested the solution to make sure that all the silver was gone. I then placed the blue electrolyte filled sports like drink to the side. Speaking of electrolyte, I will use electrolysis to recover the copper and sulfuric acid from this solution. I now proceed to rinse off any residual silver solution from the remaining plates and convert it back to silver metal. Here is all the silver once it has been thoroughly rinsed. Now this button won't be the highest purity, and I will most likely run it through a silver cell at a later date. However, the weight comes to about 16 grams. While melting these dishes, I realized that they were actually brass, since I started getting little zinc fires and had to cover it with a decent amount of borax. And here's the final results, a little over 3.5 pounds of brass and 16 grams of silver.